Welcome back. I've been speaking with former Reserve Bank of India Governor Dr. Subbarao. Dr. Subbarao, just to remind you, has seen a bit of the Lehman crisis because that's when he assumed office and his term ended with the taper tantrum. So has seen several cycles of foreign exchange problems in his time. Dr. Subbarao, thank you very much for your patience. The Reserve Bank did start with a great FX kitty, as we said. Do you think that they lulled the market into confidence about protecting an 80 number? Can the reserves have been used a little differently? I don't know how, but could it have been used differently so that 80 was not seen as calamitous?
Well, I think the Reserve Bank managers and foreign exchange dealers are smarter than the market gives them credit for. They're very smart people. So just as the market tries to game the RBI tries to be unpredictable, to act by surprise. This numbers that you talked about the psychological barriers RBI seem to be protecting 80 or 82 or whatever, I think these are narratives shaped by the market and attributed to the RBI. I would say that even if let's imagine that we're trying to construct a story that the RBI is trying to defend 81.75. I think you can construct a narrative about that.
Okay.
So RBI's managers know that, and they try to be smarter than the market. They try to be unpredictable. But if the market still sees them as defending a certain round number, a psychological number, I think it's more of the market perception than the RBI's actions.
Okay. Well, I might tell you from the media angle and as a person who speaks to forex traders, the market thinks the world of RBI. They are really scared and believe that, the RBI desk can always give them. They definitely have more cards. They have 600 billion in terms of cards. But Dr. Subbarao, the fear about this, you alluded to the fact that RBI should use depreciation to manage part of the problem, discourage imports, encourage exports, narrow the deficit. The problem with allowing the depreciation, for instance, beyond 80, is that often depreciation begets depreciation. Exporters think, oh, I will get 83 for the rupee, for the dollar. Importers think, oh, I have lost 80, let me go and book now. So do you think it can be handled that easily, depreciation as a tool?
It cannot be handled all that easily. That's for certain. Experience has taught us that. And I know from my own personal experience that it is not very easy, especially when the rupee is falling and the market expects it to fall further. But, there are perceptions about the rupee or any currency being in free fall. And when there is a very steep fall, there is also oftentimes an overshoot.
Yeah.
That is inevitable, and that's what central banks try to manage. But there is a limit. It cannot be that there is no floor. Even in 2013, which was a big crisis, when the rupee hit about 69, I think the market determined that that's about the level. They could have been overshooting, but then that level was seen to be the right level. So the reality is that even the RBI cannot defend the exchange rate against fundamentals. But what is the exchange rate according to fundamentals is something we will know only with hindsight. Okay. That's the problem. Okay. And the RBI tries to manage volatility as they say they do, and as I believe they actually try to do. But in my own view, the RBI, as much as they've done a great job before and after me, I think the RBI should be less interventionist than it's been historically.
That's sage advice. Dr. Subbarao, a slightly longish question in terms of comparison. Even in 2008, we thought we were different. Because our banks were well capitalized. It was the foreign banks which had, cheated their way out of capital norms and become highly leveraged. But crisis hit us about maybe 3 years later, probably because we were complicit and let our deficits run. The same thing could be said now. If you looked at the Fed dot plot, they are expecting the PCE, which they follow, to fall from 6.3 to about 2.3%, whereas the RBI tells us that in 2024, the same time as the Fed expects 2.3 inflation, our inflation is going to be 4%. So very soon we are going to be 2 percentage points above the Fed, above the US PCE. Do you think we are being a little too sure of our macros?
First of all, I don't know about whether being sure about our macros, but our macros are vulnerable. That much is for certain. Because, like we talked about earlier in this conversation, fiscal deficits are high and they should be brought down. It's not just the central fiscal deficit, it's the combined fiscal deficit of the center and states, which I believe is running around over 10%. And if you take actual numbers, which are beyond the budgets, it might actually be higher. So the twin deficit problem is always there with us. So we should worry about that, our macro fundamentals. If we get our macro fundamentals strong, I think we will have the resilience to fight pressures coming from outside the country. In 2011, 12, or 13, the taper tantrums was, of course, a quintessential problem because of the twin deficits accumulated or year-on-year current account and fiscal deficits. So this time around, too, we should be worried about that, and we should do our best to bring them to safe levels.
Okay. All right, Dr. Subbarao, I've run out of time. I actually wanted to take the advantage of getting a former governor and ask him about the India growth story. But I promised you I will stick with foreign exchange, and I keep my word. I'll take a rain check from you to invite you yet again about the medium-term India growth story, which seems to be much better now. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today, sir.